guys, and welcome back. So we are toward the end of November and gift giving season is upon us. All the holidays where we're doing gifts, teacher gifts, coworker gifts, friends, family, all the things, right? All the people. So if you are looking for some inexpensive gift ideas, I have 3 for you today. If you're like me, this year it's a tight budget, and so I think it's time for us to get creative and crafty and make some cute handmade things. Now, I understand the hesitation with that sometimes, because sometimes we're like, what if they don't like it? What if they don't like the handmade things? What if it's not their style? So I have a few ideas that I think are great across the board, especially for like teacher gifts if you have kids, because a couple of these even kids can do. So it would be a cute thing for you to get involved with your kids without a whole lot of fuss and muss. And honestly, I feel like if you're a crafty, creative person, you probably have people in your life that will appreciate your creative and crafty things. So without further ado, let's get on into it. So for this first craft, I did get things from the Dollar Tree. I just kind of happened to be in there and I saw the things and I was like, oh, this would be cool. So a note I want to make about that is I'm totally aware that like the Dollar Trees, the Dollar Generals, all of those places, they don't like all consistently carry the same things. So hopefully this is an idea that you can kind of find what you have either there or at another craft store inexpensively and make the little candle holders in a different way. So always take these kind of videos, because I've seen some too where they're very specific to things that they find. Take that and just run with the general ideas of it, are my tips on that, because you might not find the exact same things, but let your little creative wheels turn and see what you can make of it yourself. So let's make some cute little candle holders. So when I was at the Dollar Tree today, I found these glasses. They are votive holders. They're advertised as candle holders on the bottom. And I also found these 2 little guys. But what made me look for them was at first, out of the way, make room for the star. I found these little sticker dealy doodads. And they drew me in because I am young at heart, but they're so sparkly and so pretty. These are definitely not winter themed, but I could not leave them where they were. And these I thought were kind of cute. These were the first ones I saw, and I had this vision for a candle holder with kind of an ombre effect of this around the bottom. So that's when I went to look for these, and I did find these at the Dollar Tree near my house. So ultimately what inspired this was that I had seen some Pinterest things where they had like the candle holders and they had the glass bubble thingies that you could hot glue around, and I thought, oh, that's interesting, but I thought this would be even better. They are stickers, so we'll see how well they stick. If they don't stick, I have plan B. So we'll see how that works out, but I thought this would be fun because it makes it simple if it sticks well, and also kids could do it. So it could be a fun craft for your kids to do, to gift to a teacher, to a grandma, to whoever, right? Because we love things that kids give us. So I'm going to fight with this and see if I can get this off of the bottom. It's not peeling off as satisfyingly as I'd hoped. It's like really, really on there.
Good grief.
Oh no. Okay, let me deal with this. I'll be back. So apparently I'm going to have to soak these in boiling oil or something for a little while. So let's go put these in some hot water and we'll get started with the little ones first. These are so cute and so little, and I love them. So I am going to actually just take some rubbing alcohol on a cotton ball, and I'm going to wipe down the sides first. If you have glass that's kind of dirty, then obviously you might want to wash it first. But I'm just going to do this. The rubbing alcohol, the idea is to just make sure that it's clean. It'll dry off any oils, any debris, any ickiness that might be on there, and hopefully help our little stickers to stick a little bit better. That's very fragrant. Okay, so I've got, oh gosh, let me get rid of that. Ooh, that was powerful. So I've got both of these, the sides, wiped down with our rubbing alcohol. And I just thought these would be cute size-wise to do around this. We'll see how it turns out. The reason I wanted to try the rubbing alcohol first, the reason I have my hot glue gun up here in case of emergency, you know, you never know with stickers. You never know how sticky they're really going to be, if they're going to want to stick to a specific surface. So let's try this out and play around, create a cute little wintry votive holder. All right, so I've got this first side done, and I'm going to tell you, they're sticking. They are really sticky, so I love that. Anytime I don't have to make a mess with a hot glue gun or lose any more fingerprints, I'm happy. So now I'm looking at this, and I don't hate it. I'm going to do the other sides as well. I almost wish I had shoved these closer together, but now we're here. I don't think they're going to come up super well. They might wiggle around a little bit. They might wiggle around, and then again, I don't know. I feel like if they're too close together, I think I'm just going to leave it. I think I'm really overthinking this right now. Me, never. So I'm going to do the other three sides, and then we'll work on the other one. All right, so our first one is pretty much done. So what I'm doing now is I'm gonna look around and see where I wanna fill in some spaces. I was kind of unsure about whether to plan something specific or not with these because, you know, for one thing, like you only have, let's see, like these two big shapes, right? And then the rest of the shapes are all pretty much the same now that I'm looking at them a little more closely and I've had my hands in them. So I think I'm going to try to create a little pattern with the other one. But also I wanted to make sure I had enough for both, and I figured I would need one sheet for each. So I think I'm going to fill in some of these little edge spaces with the little dots and such, if they'll stick on those edges, if they don't pop off, just because that's more rounded. And then I'll move on to the next one. So because of those rounded edges, the little flat sides of the stickers didn't want to stick on there without popping off. So instead, I'm just taking some of the little circle stickers and filling them into places to fill in some of those empty spaces so that the four sides don't look so separate from each other. So all in all, I think this one is as full as it's going to get, and I'm going to let it go for now, but I am going to try to create a little pattern with the other one. I hate there's too many of these on this side, so I guess I'm not letting it go, really. I'm going to pop a couple of those off. I find that anytime I do something new, you guys let me know if this is true for you as well. Oh yeah, that's pretty sticky. It just unstuck my nail polish. You guys let me know if this is true for you too, but anytime I try something new, like the first time I go into it, I just go full on into it and play, and then once I kind of know what I'm working with, that's when my creativity really starts to get in. I'm a terrible, terrible plan-aheader. I don't plan ahead well. So with this next one, I decided I was going to try to create a little bit of a pattern starting with those two larger gemstone pieces. What I realized later on in this process is that each of those sort of medium sized ones, they are all exactly the same shape, which makes it hard to create sort of symmetry on the patterns because they're all exactly the same. So I ended up just kind of working with that. I stuck the towel in here because the stickers from the other side were distracting me. I was trying to line them up exactly and looking through glass at weird angles. It's just not going to happen. So I stuck the towel in there to kind of give me a little bit of a backing on that, so I wouldn't be so worried about it. So so realizing that each one of those little gems is exactly the same, and then also that right here, it's not going to look the way I wanted it to for my vision. So I went to plan B. So just kind of creating a strange little pattern, experimenting. Now I will say these are pretty sticky. I don't know how much the rubbing alcohol helped, but they definitely were hard to move around. I was able to wiggle them a little bit, so I'm glad for that, because it does make it easier. If you do get a little bit of glue residue on there from moving a sticker, you can always just take some more rubbing alcohol and clean it off. So this is where I realized I had to change my second plan a little bit because of the size and shape of these. Don't be afraid to play. Okay, so there is our second one. I kind of like that. I think I'm happy with that. So here we have one that's very patterned, and here we have one that's a little more sort of a free for all. So I know the lighting is getting kind of bad up here, so I'm going to start filming again tomorrow when the sun decides to come back out. But one thought that I do have is that these are like the stickers are sticking pretty well, but if you were making this, or a kid is making this, or whatever, you're gifting it to someone, or even if you just want it to make sure it lasts through the ages, I think it'd be a good idea to seal it up. So I'm thinking I'm gonna try Mod Podge, because I'm trying to keep all of these ideas and concepts as affordable as possible, and they have this at the Dollar Tree. I'm pretty sure they have this at most Dollar Trees, versus the gloss glaze. But I will try the gloss glaze maybe on a different project. But I'm going to try it with the Mod Podge just to seal up the outside of it. So let's do that and let it dry and see what it looks like tomorrow. All right, so here I'm just taking a little bit of glossy Mod Podge with a dry brush, and I'm trying to get into all those little nooks and crannies. One thing I would suggest that I realized after this was dry, I would go a little lighter on the Mod Podge than I did, because it will get a little gloopy if you're not careful. Here they are in the daylight with the Mod Podge all dry. And I think it did fine. I think the Mod Podge cleared really well. You do see a little bit... You see kind of a little bit of that streakiness, but it doesn't affect the glitteriness, the shininess of the gems at all. So I think it's just a good way to seal it. Show the other one too. So I think they're really pretty. One thing, yeah, see, so it's just a nice way to seal it up. Keep it simple and inexpensive. One thing I don't absolutely love is how you can see... I mean, obviously, right? I mean, obviously you can see that. So if you're looking at it from above, that doesn't look super pretty, but I don't think anybody's going to be looking at it from above. I think, you know, if you have them sitting somewhere and then put the candle in it, you know, you're going to be looking at them in this way. So I don't know. So I'm going to do the larger one and do kind of what my initial thought was on this, which was to put almost everything on the bottom, like keep it focused more on the bottom. And I think the little circle stickers will lend themselves a little bit better to that. So let's try that and see how that turns out. So for the larger ones, same process. I rubbed them down with rubbing alcohol first so that I'd have a nice clean surface. Now, one thing I ran into with these stickers was that the glue was popping off and staying stuck on the plastic. So it wasn't every single sticker. I was able to peel the glue off. You can see that here. At first I thought maybe it was the temperature, because sometimes, too hot or whatever can affect it, but it's been really cold. So I don't know. I don't know what happened with it. I think it's just kind of maybe a dud sheet of stickers. But on this one, I did count. You may have seen my little fingers go in. I was counting how many of the larger ones I had first. It was an odd number. So I just decided to go with this approach to create some symmetry. Something to keep in mind. I put the largest one in the center. This one is clearly a little off center. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, and then I just worked around. I just kept going around and around with each new idea, and to keep that symmetry in it. Distraction, cat distraction, always. Little shenanigans. So that's basically all I'm doing here. I'm just adding all these little gemstones, trying to stay around the bottom, keep it a little interesting, and keep it pretty. Now on these, because the edges are a little wider, I was able to actually get some of the smaller gems stuck on the edges, which kind of brought the four sides together, which I did enjoy. So I was glad for that. And here we are, all finished. Isn't she cute? And wait, who is this sniffing around? Hello, hello, my furry little child, causing distraction yet again. Anyway, moving right along, I finished that one, and so then I just went ahead and did the really colorful one as well. I didn't really have any issues with the stickers on that one. They all did fine. Everything came off of the backing just fine. So I'm going in with my Mod Podge on the blue one. This time I'm keeping the Mod Podge just around the bottom rather than going all the way up the glass. If I did this again, instead of going straight across, which I thought would look good, I would keep it just around the gems, because when it's finished, if you look really close, which my little Virgo self loves to do, it does show a little bit of that streakiness, which I don't love. Now on this one, I decided to try my triple thick glaze, which I adore for jewelry projects, which I also use on other things often. And I like the end result it produces. So I thought I would try it on this one to let you guys know how it works out. So a couple of things. There are some smudgy parts, right? Some drippy parts, because the glaze does sort of settle and it will drip over the edge. So as I went back in again, I tried to keep the edges cleaner. I tried to go a little thinner on those curved parts toward the sides so that it wouldn't drip over like that once it started settling and drying and setting. One thing also with this, I realized the stickers were coming off. I don't know if it was because I was laying them on the paper towel, moving it around, and it was loosening them, but either way, I think that's a pretty good indicator that you definitely want to use something on this to seal them up for it to last any length of time. If it's the triple thick glaze or if it's the Mod Podge, but just something to seal it in, because this kept happening and it was a little confusing because I wasn't sure where they were supposed to go afterwards. Another thing I realized was that with the glaze, I think my little gemstones shifted around a little bit because they weren't quite stuck. So maybe stronger stickers would be the key here. I can't imagine that the glaze was lifting it up, but this was really frustrating. This big boogery part right here. Ugh, nobody likes that. Why do you have to be that way? But otherwise, if I went back in and did it again, now this isn't completely dry this side, but I was getting a little impatient as well on waiting for everything to dry. So that's on me, my bad, because I think shifting it around too quickly caused some other problems too. So here is the end result with the triple thick glaze on the glass. Now this side looks pretty nice, pretty even. I'm good with it. This side also okay. This so I'm really bummed about that, but there's nothing I can do about it. Like, it's on there. Yeah, it's on there. And then right around on the same corner, you can see where it's a little gloppy. So, oh, sorry, trying not to make you seasick. There's also a big glop. So I like how it looks. on the nice side. So my biggest tip would be on edges like this, it's going to want to run. I thought it would mostly stay on the top, but I think because especially the rounded edges, it, gravity takes over. And so I would definitely, like I did on these two sides, just on the edges, well, not those two, that one and another one, go much thinner on the brush strokes. Maybe it was just that one. I don't know. Anyway, go thinner on the brush strokes on those edges. You can always layer over it. Don't know what happened there. I think that was a paper towel. That is a paper towel situation because I was getting impatient on letting all these things dry, so that's on me. But still, I'm going to use this pretty side forward as like a little makeup brush holder, and I think it'll be fine for that. And here are these three all lit up with a few tea lights, and I just think they actually look really lovely, so sparkly, perfect for a winter night at home. Lovely little gift. So for this next craft, I love the idea of these little ornaments. They're very simple. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can make them with like different tools, things you might have around the house. Don't ever feel obligated to go out and buy a bunch of tools or materials for something. Again, this is all about thinking outside of the box. Use what you have at home already. Okay. And this very kid friendly also. And this, when we think of ornaments, we often think of Christmas tree, but it doesn't always necessarily have to be that. There are plenty of people who celebrate holidays that are not Christmas at this time of year, right? So I'm going to share also an idea on an ornament that doesn't necessarily have to be Christmas related, that can be hung in like a car window, like the little or in a window at home or somewhere else in the home. So enjoy. I hope you like this one too. So we tend to always have this DOS air dry clay at home for one project or another that one of us feels like doing. I'm using this giant knife here. You don't have to do that. You can honestly just pull a chunk of clay off. My tips on this is that this air dry clay is great to work with if you have a plan and you go in and you know what you're doing. If you start working it too much, it does dry out and your hands will pull the moisture out of it and such things. So be cautious with that. So take a little bit and play around and practice first if you need to, and then go into your project. But basically what I'm doing here is I take my little ball of clay, and you'll notice how I kind of turn and flip, like flip and turn, because that gives me a nice even rollout of the clay. Now I have this clay roller because I do a lot of polymer clay stuff. You can use a glass, you can use just a different kind of roller, like a food roller. Just be sure to wash it really well afterwards. But this clay is really soft, so it's easy to work with. It's easy to get a nice even surface to work on. Now you will see that I end up with some wrinkles. I'm using parchment paper. Wax paper would also be good to use on your table just to prevent any other gook from getting in your clay or your clay sticking to your table. But in a second you will see where I have some dents and wrinkles and wiggles and things, just that it's picking up from underneath the paper on my table, my very loved table that has seen a lot of things. So because it's so soft, it will leave those imprints really easily, which is great, but it can also be a struggle. So right here, those are pretty easy to smooth out. What I'm actually going to do is at this point transfer it to something else to work on so we don't run into that again. I have these little plexiglass plate things that I have, again, from working with polymer clay. You can also just buy like a really cheap tile at any home goods store and use that, or a cutting board or whatever. Just again, be cautious with anything that's a food surface. I have all of these clay cutters. A lot of these are actually old cookie cutters. You can find them at thrift stores, so you don't have to spend a lot of money. This little roller doodad is delightful, but you can see how easily this clay picks up the textures with that. I also have all of these plates. So again, you can purchase these things. I'm going to show you how to work with them, but don't feel obligated to use those because we can do some other things too. So basically, I'm going to put the plate on top of the clay very gently and just roll my roller over it, holding onto it so it doesn't wiggle around, and get a nice even pattern from that plate. So then kind of checking out where I'm going to place my cutters, trying to use my clay wisely and use as much of it as possible. Waste not, want not, right? And there's not quite enough there, so I'm actually going to go in with a smaller cutter on that one. So once you have your shapes cut out, you can just leave them where they are if you need to, or if you need that surface, you can gently remove them. You can pick them up if you want to. That one doesn't work, so that one works pretty easy rather. But the other ones, because of those ruffly edges and the clay is so soft, I'm going in with this skinny little clay knife. You can also just use a regular knife. Because if I try to pick it up, it ends up messing with those little ruffly little edges there. So I moved these over to the other plate just to kind of get them out of the way, but before they start to dry, I'm going in to create little holes to pull our twine or our ribbon through, and I'm just using the bottom, the round flat part of a skewer here. So again, just use what you have at home. You don't have to go out and buy a bunch of clay tools. So now this is the leftover clay from what we just did, and it still works okay, but you'll see how in the next little frame it was so much smoother because I actually did add just a little bit more clay because it was getting a little crackly and rough. So here I'm just using a doily to show you how to get some other textures on there from things you might have around at home. And it basically worked way better just to pat it down than to roll over it because it made it a little blurry. There is some cracking in this because again, it was the clay that we had previously used. So it's got a few little dry spots, just smooth those out. And here I just wanted to show you, you don't have to have the fancy clay cutters. You can also just use glassware that you have at home, any size or other things, get creative with it. And the glassware does leave a little bit of an edge that's easy enough to cut off with a clay knife or even with a regular knife. So no big deal there. Here I'm using a star-shaped cutter, and then I also have this little rubber stamp. So I wanted to just show another example of something you could use, maybe stuff that you have around the house. You could even make a cardboard template. The skewer, I was trying to see if the pointy end would work. It did, but the knife works better. A butter knife would be fine. You might need to work on shapes like this a little bit longer, but that's part of the handmade joy and goodness, right? You're making something from scratch. And I just wanted to show that you could use the little glass as a roller as well if you don't have the clay rollers. Now for the smaller points, I'm actually using the pointy end of the skewer just because it's a little smaller. So here we are the next morning, and you can see that the clay is not quite dry. And you know, because the outside has this white rim and edge, and you can see the darker gray still on the inside. So just be aware that your clay needs to dry completely, and you will probably have to flip it over and let it finish drying. So did that. Coming back now, our clay is nice and dry. So now we're just going to paint. The even more fun part, the waiting for it to dry, definitely not fun. So for these rougher edges, to clean them up, I'm actually just using a nail file. The clay is soft enough that you can just clean it up with the soft or rough end of a nail file, or edge rather. You can use sandpaper as well, but if you don't have it at home, you don't have to worry about it. And I actually like the nail files better for little edges like this, the little ruffly bits, because I can angle it and get in between those little ridges a little easier without worrying about completely sanding off the edges and the little ridges. So just take your time with it. Now, this might make you think that the clay is not very sturdy, but it really, really is. These are just little tiny bits and pieces that we're cleaning up from the edges of it, sort of like little fuzzies, if you want to think of it that way. Just cute little fuzzies we're trying to send off into the wilderness or something. I don't know. But even here you can see with on the star, it's easy to go in with a nail file. Just be gentle with it. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy sandpaper, but it will hold up. It is nice and sturdy. So I have these little powders that I got with a resin kit. I'm honestly not sure exactly what kind of powders they are. Anytime you're using something like this, be cautious. Maybe wear gloves if you need to. Be aware of allergy things. I'm just going in here with my finger and using this, rubbing it on the top because it kind of helps prevent getting it into some of those crevices, and then just brushing it away. This creates just a really lovely light color effect, a nice little tint, if you will. And on this one, same thing. I'm going to try with two different colors, and both of these colors are very, very light, and I chose these because they felt sort of wintry and holiday-ish. A darker color might actually show up a little bit more, but I went in with the blue, and then I'm going in with the gold on some just detail places just to kind of see what would happen and how that would work out. Now you could actually probably even paint this and then use powders like this over top just to give a layered effect. Just ideas, just sharing some ideas. Get in there, be creative. I'm going in with the brush just to kind of see if the brush will help cover it a little bit more, but it's very light. It kind of flakes off a little bit. So just play around with that. And then I'm using this shimmery craft paint that I just enjoy because it sort of shimmers different colors on one of the other ones. And just going to paint that straight on there. Now, one thing to think about if you're painting these, whatever you're using on these, you probably want to do both sides if it's going to be hanging somewhere. I did not on these simply because I was getting to a point with all of these projects where I was waiting for things to dry and I was like, I'm never going to get this video out. So I only did one side, but you could do the top and then let it dry, do the sides, do the bottoms as well. And even with the glazing part, same thing, let them dry in between. And so really that kind of becomes the most time consuming part of any of these projects is just the waiting for it to dry. So be sure to plan ahead. Now I went in and I changed brushes on this because I felt like it was getting a little streaky for some reason. So I just went in with a round brush to kind of give it a nice smooth finish. And then you'll see I kind of go into the little space that we made for the string, and I just clean out some of that paint because I don't want it to gunk up and then not be able to get my twine or my ribbon through there. So then on this one, I am going in and painting those edges real quick and painting the back and then letting it dry. Now here we're going in with our triple thick glaze. And one thing that I was concerned about was if the glaze would brush away some of the powders, but it didn't. And I did just kind of go in and pat this on the top and let it sit on the top. So now here I'm actually working on my other ornament that has nothing to do with the holidays. I'm going in with this, you can barely even tell on the camera, and ultimately in the end, it was this really light vanilla color that I thought would make a cute background for the idea that I had in my brain, and I ended up like not even doing that. It was kind of a last minute thing. I was hoping it would give kind of a pale, warm tint to it, but it was so close to the clay color that it was hardly even noticeable. So anyway, I decided I wanted to create this little ornament, maybe hang in my rear view mirror in my car. And I'm going in with acrylic paints, just my golden acrylic paints that I have for my painting things at home. And so I just went in to initially do this quick sort of base coat, first layer of this idea with the sunflower and mushrooms. And so it's quite the process. I ended up a little bit conflicted about what was happening with my sunflower leaves, with the mushrooms. One of the mushrooms ended up huge, so I had to go back in and repaint it. But anyway, I went in with the acrylics first because I like that paint texture, and then I went back in with Poscas, and I also even ended up going in toward the very end with a Prismacolor marker to outline the edges of the sunflower, which shockingly actually worked on top of everything else. And so then, of course, I glazed it. The glaze did fine, and etc., etc. So for the rest of this little clip, I will stop rambling on and let you all listen to some cute little tunes while you watch me work through this whole process. Here, the glaze is all dry, and I wanted to show you how they turned out. So there's our purple shimmery one. I like that one a lot. And then we have this one where we just did the, let's see. Oh, this one is just plain. I need glasses. And then this one we did the mica powder. I don't know if it's mica powder. It's some kind of powder. But there's that one, a nice gentle tint. And here's the one where we did the two powders together, just for some ideas. And then, of course, this big one. So the glaze did kind of cover up most of my texture on the sunflowers there. There are a couple spots where the glaze didn't get into, but that's okay too. I was actually a little hesitant because I was worried that maybe the markers or something would bleed, but they did pretty well. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that too. Okay, so for this last one, it's not a new concept. I actually have a full-length video on how to make this dishcloth, and I will link that in the cards. I will link it in the description below so that it's easy to find. And it's a pretty simple basic pattern, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here today talking about this, but I did want to test out the yarn from the Dollar Tree because it is a little bit less expensive than the yarn that I find in the craft stores or order online. But I will talk about that when we get into it. And without further ado, let's keep it moving and get through this video. So I grabbed this yarn from the Dollar Tree today because, again, trying things to make them as affordable as possible for everyone. And I thought this would be great to use for the dishcloths because it says just cotton. But unfortunately, I realized it's 85% cotton, 15% polyester. So I'm going to make a couple of dishcloths, see what I can get out of this, and let you guys know how it holds up. Generally, I always say to use 100% cotton. That's what I've always used for my dishcloths because it dries really well, so it's not going to mildew while it's hanging out in your kitchen or wherever in between washes, and it just holds up really well. So I'm going to test this and see how it goes and let you know. So this dishcloth is super easy if you're a brand new beginner to crochet. This is a perfect project to start with. Basically, all you're going to do is create a chain of 26, 25, or 26. That's usually what I do. And then you're going to single crochet all the way down your row. Just single crochet to your heart's content down the entire row. When you get to the end, you're going to chain one, turn your work, and then keep single crocheting until you have the size that you want. Now, usually that would be square. So if you do a count of 25, you're going to do a row, you're going to have 25 rows. And then once you're done, you're going to tuck your little tails in, cut those off, and you are good to go. Again, I'll link the full video below in case you need those specific instructions. So here are my final thoughts on using the Dollar Tree yarn for dishcloths. I personally will not be using it. I don't think that it's super terrible. So I did run this one under some hot water yesterday. I was going to try it with my dishes, but so much blue dye came out. You can kind of see where it's definitely bled over into the white. Now that is not uncommon. I'm not downing this brand for that specifically because depending on the dyes used, I've had that happen with the other brands of yarn that I've used as well, specifically with red. The first time I used it and washed it, a lot of the dye came out. That can happen with clothes and things too. It is what it is. My only concern is that because it's that blend of cotton and I can't remember now what, nylon or polyester, it doesn't dry super well. So I took this out of the dryer a little while ago, probably about 30 minutes ago, along with all of my other towels and dishcloths and things. They were all dry. This is actually still damp in places. So that's my personal concern. Like, you could leave it out and dry it. I think it's usable. but I take issue when fabrics stay wet too long. They get that odor because they start to mildew. So I would definitely stick with something 100% cotton. Those brands are not super expensive. I will link them below. I'll see if I can find Amazon affiliate links, or you can check them out in Michael's, Walmart, etc., etc. Also, you will notice not any shrinkage, so that's good. Just something to keep in mind. So there wasn't a big bit of shrinkage, if that's a concern. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on using this. But anyway, yeah, just wanted to share. So here are all of my little gift and decor ideas together. I put a little bow on a set of dishcloths that I actually plan to give someone this holiday season. And I plan on using the other things myself. So let me know what you guys think. I hope you liked these, and let me know if you make some of these as well. Okay, so this was a little different than what I usually do. Usually I make one item at a time and I do my video from beginning to end. I thought since these were some simple ideas, I would mush them together in one video. Let me know if you guys like that and you want to see more things like that. Honestly, it was a little bit confusing for me because of all the drying time involved in the things. So for me, my brain was getting a little noodled with what I was going to say when I do the voiceovers and all that stuff, but I'm going to do my best to make sure it's really good, and I hope you guys liked it. Let me know if you enjoyed this, if you got some cool ideas, if you want to see some more handmade ideas before the holidays are really like bum rushing us like mad. Please let me know in the comments, and I'll see if I can find some other handmade things that I think would be cute gifts and such, or even decor. I hope you guys liked it. If you enjoy all things creative and crafty, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys soon with another new video. Take care. Bye-bye.